Constitutional attorney David Coale joins us now to talk more about these cases. David, good morning to you and welcome to the show. When looking at Donald Trump's presidential immunity case in particular, let's just start there. What factors need to be considered as the judges issue their opinion?
Well, I think the reason the court took this case is this is a fundamental issue about how our government works. Can the president be prosecuted criminally? And the rules about that are going to be in place for this president, for the next president in 50 years. So I think they're going to try to make some kind of statement, both for this case and for the ages, about here are the rules, here are the principles we're going to follow. I expect them to come out with some kind of 3, 4, 5-factor test and then send it back down to the trial court to consider in light of those factors. They're wanting to make a statement here that lasts longer in time than just the Donald Trump presidency, I think.
And what would those factors be? What exceptions are we talking here?
I think they would look at criteria to examine an action that's being challenged in a criminal prosecution. They would look to see if the action is historically something associated with the exercise of presidential power. They would look at the effect on it. Is it purely, is it advancing the private interests of the president or the public interests of the government, that sort of thing, to try to separate out activity that legitimately should be protected from criminal prosecution from private activity that really is fair game because nobody's above the law in this country.
But to that end, it does seem interesting to me, by taking the case and whatever framework they come up with, no matter what they do, they're leaving the door, in layman's appreciation of this, they're leaving the door open that some kind of crimes are okay while you're leader of the free world. Just at face value, and granted, I know that's a street level summation, but that just seems like a really dangerous road to go down, not just in the context of this election, but what it could mean for other people who seek the office and why they seek the office.
No, and it's in some respects, it's kind of a foolish thing to do in terms of trying to guess what the next crisis is going to be. I mean, you can sit and look at this and come up with some rules and say, here's our guidance for the next problem. 50, 75 years from now, another crisis comes up. It's going to involve technology we've never heard of. It's going to involve activity that we don't do today because the tech doesn't exist yet. And they're going to be looking back at these factors going, I wonder how we apply them. It's a difficult thing to do. But there do have to be some rules because the president does a lot of things during the day, some of which really are for the good of the country and shouldn't be the subject of prosecution, others that are personal or political. And it is a difficult thing to sift those out. So maybe having a couple of factors will help more than it hurts.
It's interesting that if something's good for the country, then it shouldn't be illegal. But anyways, it'd be fascinating what they do. Real quick, I definitely want to get to the abortion issue. They're going to really make some major decisions on that front. No matter what decisions come out and when, the cloud over this court right now are the ethical issues with Alito and Clarence Thomas. Clarence taking a lot of money from Republican mega donors who always expect something in return for their money, and Alito and the flags and the recorded comments, and people who've been following all of that. Don't you think some of these decisions, particularly the immunity case, and particularly because of what Donald Trump is going through legally, people are going to really pick apart those decisions in the context of this perceived bias of both these justices?
No, it's a very challenging time for the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, we live in hyper-partisan times anyway, and the Supreme Court has just scored some own goals in the last couple of years. This business with Alito and Thomas, it's not so much the accusations, it's that they don't seem to really express a lot of concern about them when they're asked about it. And then you have the Dobbs case that comes out a couple of years ago that overrules Roe, and that, whatever your views are about Roe, it's hard to get past the fact that that was precedent for 50-something years until all of a sudden there got to be a strong conservative majority on the court. A lot of people saw politics in that, and Justice Alito's very powerfully written opinion in that case didn't really help any. So the court needs to be careful in how it says things to try to avoid bringing even more scrutiny on itself. But frankly, it hasn't done a great job of that over the last couple of years.
And confidence in the court is at an all-time low at this point, and those are the reasons why. So when it does come to the abortion drug case, mifepristone, the judges will decide if the FDA overstepped its authority by expanding access. So we're talking about getting these pills through the mail. What's the key issue that the judges are going to need to weigh in this case?
Yeah, the key issues in this case are really on the front end, procedural, because before you get to the question of do the FDA properly authorize mifepristone in all the many ways it can be used today, you have to say, who are these people and why are they here? And it's a group of doctors who claim that someday they may treat someone that has an adverse effect from mifepristone because of what the FDA did. That's a strange theory in terms of how courts usually expect litigants to come to court. People usually come in because they've been hurt in the past or they're about to be hurt tomorrow. And it's going to be a challenge for them to deal with that rule. And I expect the opinion to focus on that threshold question, because otherwise the FDA can't do business. Anybody who someday might have a problem with the drug could come in and challenge the FDA, and that's just not going to work.
And the inherent conflict in this case of law and science, you know, and how those two things can be at odds. And there is a political movement in this country, especially in post-Roe America, to now we got abortion where we want it. Now we're coming after contraception. That is a political goal among some in the country. In this case, is deeply tied to all of that. Last front here before we let you go. When it comes to cases focused on potentially regulating social media sites, Facebook, for example, how do First Amendment laws come into play, and what will, whatever the justices decide, will it have any impact on how everyday folk use these sites?
Yeah, these are some tough issues, because it's very hard to come up with a rule of law that lets you regulate Facebook, Google, whatever, that doesn't also let you regulate you and me or Scripps. Because companies are businesses, and businesses that are owned by human beings can speak just like people can. So if a newspaper can make editorial decisions, or you guys can decide who you're going to have on your show, I can decide who I talk to. Well, Facebook can decide about what they're going to have and not have on their platform. And it's hard to make a rule that says just because you're a big company, there are special rules that apply to you. It doesn't start tumbling into a lot of other protected speech. It's a real challenge. It's awkward because they're very, very big and have enormous influence and look a lot more like a traditional phone company or something than a newspaper. But legally, they're more like a newspaper traditionally, and that's why these cases are so challenging.
And they're so big and so popular. To me, no matter what the decision is, it's always the issue of enforcement. If I have a few billion people using my site, how do I possibly have a workforce that can regulate and monitor everyone's comment and everyone's post?
And that's a big... Yeah.
No, go ahead.
That's a big point in these cases, is they say, how are we supposed to comply with this? This is all automated, and if Texas and Florida and Nebraska all get to tell us what to do, we just can't run. We have to shut stuff down, and that's a real issue in these cases.
A full and historic docket for this Supreme Court, so thanks for helping us understand it. Constitutional attorney David Coale, please come back, because once these decisions come down, we want some help in kind of digesting it for ourselves and for our viewers. So standing invite, sir. Thank you.
It's like Christmas for an appellate lawyer. It's like Christmas morning.
Well, thanks for your time and happy holidays.
Yeah. Jay, over to you.